Hi, it's Dennis Daly. The golden age of radio was one of the shortest golden ages of all time, yet during its run, radio brought about immense change in America. Radio brought us through the Depression and the Second World War, and then struggled on until television finally won the battle for supremacy in American media. Radio had begun just after the turn of the last century as dots and dashes, listened to by do-it-yourself radio enthusiasts. Then early voice transmissions brought radio into its first age. By the 30s, the techniques were perfected, the networks were in place, and radio was on its way. The war changed everything, as did the coming of television. On the night of September 30th, 1962, when yours truly, Johnny Dollar, and Suspense signed off on the CBS radio network, the golden age ended. But radio's final 25 years were golden indeed. So join me now as we explore radio's last 25 years. 1951 was the year that peace talks failed to bring an end to the war in Korea. The nation of Japan, years after World War II, officially signed a peace treaty in San Francisco with 49 other nations. The Constitution got its 22nd Amendment, limiting the terms of presidents. New York City disc jockey Alan Freed came up with a new phrase, rock and roll, and the Yankees won yet another World Series, beating the Giants in 6 games. Radio was continuing its losing battle with television in 1951. We have 2 interesting shows from that year to show the diversity of radio. The first is a fun weekly dramatization of the Sunday newspaper funnies. The second, an episode from the 1951 run of an NBC series based on a 1948 Cary Grant movie.
The Comic Weekly Man, the jolly Comic Weekly Man, and I'm here to read the funnies to you happy boys and honeys. Yes, boys and girls, it's Comic Weekly time, and here I come right into your house to bring a little fun and happiness. Right out of the pages of Puck the Comic Weekly, straight into your living room, your friend, the Comic Weekly Man, the jolly Comic Weekly Man. Hello, 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 hello.
Hello, 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 hello.
Well, little Miss Honey, how are you today?
Oh, I'm just wonderful because this is one of my favorite times.
Oh, I know what you mean. This is Easter.
Yes, I just love Easter because then I have a wonderful time looking for Easter eggs in the morning.
And did the bunny leave you lots of eggs this year?
Yes, he left me lots of chicken eggs.
The bunny left you chicken eggs?
Well, they tasted like chicken when I ate them.
Chicken or chicken eggs?
Like eggs.
Oh, yes. Well, that's the wonderful thing about bunnies. On Easter morning, they always make the eggs taste like chicken eggs. That's one of their tricks.
Oh.
Were they very pretty eggs?
Oh, yes. They were all different colors, and some had stripes, and some had stars on them.
Oh, the ones with stars were laid by the bunny who was good in school.
I'll bet it was.
Mm-hmm.
And now, I hope you can read me the funnies and read about Brer Rabbit, because he's one of my favorites, too.
Puck the Comic Weekly?
Mm-hmm.
Very well, I will in just a moment. But before I do, let's listen to this nice man. Boys and girls. Now, here we go with Puck the Comic Weekly. And on the first page, here's Hopalong Cassidy.
Oh, and I'm anxious to find out what happened to Hoppy and Philippy, that boy he was helping.
Well, let's read now and find out. So here we go with Hopalong Cassidy on page 1.
Magic words for the music, please.
Very well, my lady. 6 guns blazing as he thunders along. Give us music for Hopalong. California and Lucky have been captured by the sheriff's posse. And first picture, Lucky, who is in a cell at the jail, is saying to the deputy, "We didn't kidnap Don Felipe. Turn us loose." Second picture, California says, "Yeah, wait till Hopalong Cassidy hears of this." The deputy just sneers and says, "Yeah, you will soon. I reckon as how Sheriff Meigs and the posse have caught up with him by now." Meanwhile, Hoppy has taken Felipe home to his father's ranch. The sheriff, led by Sloat and his men, followed Hoppy there. And last picture, second row, the sheriff is saying to Hoppy, "You outsmarted yourself, Cassidy. Seeing the law closing in, you beat us here to Don Ramon's with a twisted yarn of how you saved young Felipe from kidnappers." And Felipe's father, Don Ramon, says, "Oh, gracias, Sheriff, for arresting this fraud." First picture next row, the sheriff says, "Well, you can thank Sloat here for warning me in time. The town jail won't seem so lonesome now with Cassidy and his pards as guests." Sloat snarls, "Let's get started, Sheriff." The men mount, and as they gallop off, Sloat says to the sheriff, "I'd lay odds that Cassidy and those two galoots are behind all the recent raids on Don Ramon's hacienda." The sheriff replies, "Well, if so, you've done Rio Vista a big favor, Sloat." At this point, Sloat and his outlaws bid farewell to the sheriff, who gallops off. First picture next row. Sloat sends his men back to the shack. And first picture next row. He takes a deserted road, back trail, for the town of Rio Vista, so he won't be seen by the sheriff. First picture bottom row, Sloat's in the local tax collector's office and is reporting to an oily-looking man sitting behind a desk. "And the sheriff's holding 3 strangers for trial of kidnapping Don Felipe Madera." The man sits back in his chair, smiles smugly, and says, last picture, "Well, I'd hate to be in their boots if an unruly mob decided not to wait for a trial." Sloat smiles evilly, saying, "Yeah, that's what I've been thinking."
Oh, what does he mean by that?
I think he's trying to get Sloat to rouse the citizens against Hoppy and his pals so they'll break open the jail and take Hoppy out and lynch him.
Oh, my goodness, that's against the law.
I know, but some mean people often do that.
That's terrible. I wonder what's going to happen.
Well, maybe something will come up, so let's wait till next week to find
All
out.
right.
Now?
Is Prince Valiant on page 3 again?
Well, let's turn over the page and see.
All right. Yes, there he is. And he's still on the mountain being chased by those savage men.
Yes, he'd gone to the mountain to hunt chamois skins, so the monks in the monastery would have warm clothes.
And just as he was going back, all loaded down with lots of skins, he was attacked by the savage men that you call the
That's right, the barbarians.
Yes, that's what I said.
But Val got away from them by climbing a mountain ridge over their heads.
And so, please read. I'm anxious to see if he gets away all right.
All right, here we go with Prince Valiant in the days of King Arthur. Hackett, Brackett, Grey Malkin, and Quince. Music romantic for a fair, fair prince. The barbarians shoot at Val, who climbs the ridge above them, beyond range of their arrows, as he seeks a way to get above and around them. But last picture, his plight is desperate. Night is falling, and his clothing is soaked with melting snow. But at last, first picture next row, Val sees a wide ledge. But can he safely cross the snow slope between? Between the two rocks lies a space of about 10 feet of snow that's frozen hard. Val wonders if it's strong enough to hold him. If it doesn't, he'll fall to the rocks 100 feet below. But behind him are the barbarians. Val has no choice. Last picture of the row, cautiously he starts, fearful of starting an avalanche. A few feet from his goal, the slope gives a sickening lurch. And Val leaps for the ledge. And he's not a second too soon, for a dark crevasse appears and widens, and then the snow falls away. And Val, safe on the rock, knows there can be no return. Then swiftly night falls, and Val realizes he'll freeze if he doesn't do something quickly. So second picture, bottom row, he dances about to send the blood circulating and warm his chill body. Then, thoroughly warm, he removes his clothing and wrings the damp clothes as dry as possible. Then, after dressing again, he makes out with a chilly meal from one of the chamois which he'd been carrying. Then he digs a cave in the snow and wraps himself up in the damp chamois hides. And here, sheltered from the winter wind, he snuggles in and hopes to survive the cold, cold night.
My, isn't he in an awfully cold place to spend the night? That wind whistling makes me cold just to hear it.
Yes, I hope the hides of the chamois keep him warm enough to stay alive and safe through the night.
I hope so, too.
Well, we'll learn more about this next week. Now, how would you...
I'd just love to if it's Brer Rabbit.
Well, since you're so anxious to read Brer Rabbit, let's turn over the page and go past Jungle Jim Turn over another page, and there on page 7 is Uncle Remus and his tales of Brer Rabbit. Say the magic words with me. Hippity-hoppity, make it a habit. Give us music for old Brer Rabbit. Uncle Remus says,
The trouble with Brer Fox is he thinks about everybody too much. Yeah, especially about Brer Rabbit.
Brer Sparrow flies to Brer Rabbit. And he says excitedly,
Hey, I just seen Brer Fox building a trap.
and Brer Rabbit says,
Oh, it couldn't be for anyone else but me. Well, come on.
and Brer Swallow leads Brer Rabbit off to where Brer Fox is building the trap. Brer Rabbit hides behind a big rock, and he sees Brer Fox weaving a trap out of willow wands. And Brer Fox is singing, Rabbit stew, I love you, ah-ba-doo, weedy-weedy-boo. And Brer Rabbit sees Brer Fox tying a rope to the top of the tree. And he throws the rope over the top of a limb and pulls the trap up over the limb of the tree. Then he ties the other end of the rope to a little stake he's driven in the ground. And Brer Fox says, This is the best getting out of trap I ever built. Last picture top row, Brer Fox turns to a basket of asparagus, saying, And sparrowgrass for bait. Rabbits is suckers for asparagus. And he begins to stick the asparagus in the ground underneath the trap. And Brer Fox says, first picture bottom row, Brer Rabbit is going to get all the asparagus he wants, and then I is going to get all the rabbit that I want. Brer Rabbit has ideas, too. He takes his slingshot out of his pocket, takes careful aim at the stake at the end of the rope, and then lets fly. The stone knocks the stake loose, releasing the trap. It falls, trapping Brer Fox. And last picture, he howls, Oh, let me out! Burr, burr. And Brer Rabbit throws him a handful of asparagus. As Brer Sparrow says,
Brer Fox is going to get mighty sick of living on asparagus.
and Brer Rabbit giggles,
Well, it's better for him than rabbits do.
and Uncle Remus says,
A real friend is the one what gets there ahead of the need.
Well, that Brer Fox deserved just what he got. The very idea. Trying to set a trap for a nice little rabbit like Brer Rabbit so he could make rabbit stew out of it.
Yes, well, it often happens that when you try to do dirt to the other fellow, the dirt comes right back in your own face.
Yes, and I'm glad it happened to Brer Fox. It served him right.
It certainly did. And now let's turn over to the last page of the first section and see what's there.
Right. Oh, it's Flash Gordon. And I'm anxious to read that because Flash is in a new rocket ship that he made, and he's trying to get back down to Earth.
Just as he was nearing Earth, a meteor, which is a falling star, came toward them.
And Flash had to turn aside so they wouldn't be hit. But then he couldn't control the rocket ship, and I'm anxious to know if they'll be able to get back down to the Earth.
Well, let's find out right now. So here we go with Flash Gordon. Rig-a-dig-a-doon-doon, Saskramatash. Let's have music for Heroic Flash. Flash's rocket is heating up like a shooting star in Earth's outer air. Flash says to Dale, Our brake rockets won't hold. We've got to turn around and use our tail rocket to slow us down. Turning his rocket around end per end with a gyroscope, Flash brakes with swiftly increasing power as he plunges toward Earth, not far from New York. Land-based jets leap up to check on the strange visitor from space. Closer and closer he falls to Earth. And as he comes spinning backwards to the ground, last picture, top row, he almost checks his fall. But the rocket lands heavily on its tail end and topples to Earth, shaking up its two passengers. There was wild excitement in the countryside, because Flash has landed in a small community in the park. Naturally, the people there are completely amazed to see this unusual rocket ship coming to Earth in such a strange manner. And in no time, there was a small crowd gathered around the rocket ship. First picture, bottom row, Flash opens the hatch to his ship. The Earth man asks, Are they men from Mars? Hey, look, one's a girl. An officer reaches for his gun. Flash waves good-naturedly and says, Hey, don't shoot, officer. We've just come home from a long trip. When the people on Earth learn it's Flash Gordon and Dale who have landed, there's a great celebration. And before they know it, they're receiving a record-breaking reception as the first persons who ever traveled in space. A big parade is held in Flash and Dale's honor, and they're taken on a tour of the city. Down Broadway they go, sitting on the top of their car as thousands cheer. The photographers take pictures, and Dale is so happy. And Flash smiles at her. Well, we're really home.
Oh, isn't that wonderful? I'm so glad Flash landed safely and people treated Flash just like a hero.
So am I.
I'm glad they have sense enough to know he's a hero. I wonder what'll happen next week.
Well, if I know Flash Gordon, I wouldn't be surprised if a new adventure started.
Well, now would you read me Dagwood and Blondie? They're next, on the first page of the second section of Puff the Comic Weekly.
All right, I'll read them in just a moment. But first, here's that nice man again with something interesting to say. Now, here we go again with Puff the Comic Weekly. And on the first page of the second section, Dagwood and Blondie.
Magic words for the music, please.
Very well, my lady. Ramafoo, ramafum, zim, zam, zombie. Conjure me music for Dagwood and Blondie.
Dagwood, I'm going to the beauty parlor, and I'll be back in an hour.
Dagwood calls to Blondie.
Hey, wait a minute. Cash this check for me at the bank on your way. I need some money. I'm broke.
A little later, a delivery boy is at the door, last picture, top row, saying to Dagwood,
A package for Mrs. Bumstead. $22. Collect.
Dagwood exclaims,
Oh, boy, I haven't a cent until Blondie returns. And this is her dress for the party tonight.
Dagwood tells the delivery boy to wait a minute. He dashes over to Herb Woodley's house. He asked Herb for his picture next row.
Hey, Herb, will you please lend me $22 for 1 hour?
Once again, Herb sees a chance to make some money out of Dagwood, and he says,
What will you put up for security?
Dagwood drops to his knees, and he says,
You can hold me for 1 hour. I'll put myself up for security.
Herb puffs on his pipe, and then says, Okay, that's a deal. So he hands Dagwood the money. Dagwood dashes back to the delivery boy. The last picture of the row says,
Here's your $22 for the dress.
and Herb takes Dagwood by the hand, saying, Now, come on. Remember, you belong to me, body and soul, for 1 hour. And back to Herb's house they go. First picture next row. Dagwood is sitting in the corner, bound hand and foot, as Herb sits at a desk figuring out how much money he's going to make for loaning Dagwood the $22. And Herb says, The interest on the loan will be 3% for the first hour and 6% for each additional hour. Dagwood snorts,
Some fine friend.
Meanwhile, Blondie is downtown at the beauty parlor. And the salesgirl says to her,
And why don't you let me give you a appointment, Mrs. Bumstead? It'll just take a few hours longer.
and Blondie replies,
Okay, Sally. I have plenty of time.
Last picture of the row, Herb says gleefully, The interest is piling up. It's almost 3 hours. Just then the doorbell rings, and he goes to the door, and first picture bottom row finds Blondie there. She says,
Herbert, Dagwood's not home. Do you know where he is?
Sure. I've got him locked up in our clothes closet. And he leads her back to the house. And he opens the closet door. And Dagwood falls out. When Blondie sees Dagwood bound hand and foot, her hat pops off in surprise. And Herb chuckles devilishly. You can have him back for $25.30. Naturally, Blondie gives Herb the money. And as she carries Dagwood home, last picture, Herb counts his money, saying, Personally, I wouldn't have paid that much to get him back. And Blondie answers angrily,
Well, after all, he's my husband. Oh, that's Herb. Isn't he a wicked man to treat Dagwood like that?
Oh, I wouldn't be too worried. This is only a funny story, especially for the funny papers.
Oh, that's right. But don't they do the funniest things?
Yes, they do.
Oh, look, right underneath Blondie, there's Roy Rogers.
And I'll read that right now. So here we go on page 1 of the second section of Puck the Comic Weekly with Roy Rogers. Say the magic words with me. Aye-yip-bi-yo. Now here we go with Roy and Trigger. Aye-yip-bi-yo. It's the day of the Wild West show. As Roy and Dangerfield enter the ring, the escaped convict handles Baldwin, disguised as a cowboy, turns the wild bull loose. Roy sees the bull coming at him and yells to Dangerfield, "Hey, jump to one side. He'll gore you. Try to keep moving. I've got an idea." Dangerfield jumps aside not a second too soon. Roy quickly pulls his revolver and, with one shot, cuts the rope, holding a red banner on a pole. The banner falls to the ground, and as Dangerfield comes running by, last picture top row, Roy yells, "Keep running. He's headed in the right direction." Roy whips the banner across the bull's eyes. The bull trips and falls to the ground. First picture, bottom row. "Hey, yippee! Roy Rogers snagged the bull!" Roy and Dangerfield are safe. Handles Baldwin, who is watching from behind a pillar, growls,
Ah, drat it. My scheme to fix Rogers and that showman Dangerfield backfired. But I ain't finished yet.
At that moment, one of the men standing nearby sees Baldwin and yells, "Hey, there's that escaped jailbird. Handles Baldwin. Get him!" Roy turns and hollers, "You're not getting away this time, Baldwin. I aim to keep my promise and deliver you to the sheriff alive." And he runs for Baldwin, who, last picture, leaps in the saddle of a horse standing nearby.
Now let go of that bridle.
And a cowboy named Chet, holding the reins of the horse, says, "Get off that horse. It's a wild bull."
Oh, goody, goody, goody. That's a good joke on Handles Baldwin. I just hope that horse bucks him off. And then when he falls to the ground, I hope he bumps his head good and hard and he gets knocked subconscious. And then Roy will pick him up and put him in the ring and say, "Sheriff, here's your man."
Well, next week we'll find out. Now, I think it's time for...
it's time for Dick's Adventures. We haven't read him yet, you know.
Oh, yes. Dick's Adventure. So let's turn over to the very last page.
And here he is. Dick is with Mad Anthony, Wayne, and General Washington, and there's been a big battle between the English and the Americans, but the Americans lost.
Yes, the armies retreated before the overwhelming force of the British.
I wonder what's going to happen to Dick now.
Well, let's read and find out. So here we go with Dick's Adventures. Say the magic words with me. Rickety-pack, kazak, kazik. Let's have music for Adventurous Dick. Dick and his disheartened brothers-in-arms retreat before the overpowering British and Hessians driving on Philadelphia. It's a disastrous end to the Battle of Brandywine Creek, the year 1776. In the enveloping darkness and fog, Dick is cut off from his friends, the foes all around him. Last picture, top row, Dick finds himself alone in the underbrush, hearing movements in the dark about him. As he sits there quietly, he says to himself unhappily, "Gee, they're whipping us like dogs, and we're going to fight back like wolves." First picture, next row, a thought comes to him, and he says, "Hey, what about our Navy? Didn't we have a Navy in the Revolutionary War? Hey, what about John Paul Jones?" The next instant, Dick finds himself on board an old-time armed vessel, fast and small, flying the American flag. This is the Ranger, now on the high seas, 3,000 miles from home. Dick shakes his head and looks around, just as a sailor, last picture of the row, says to him,
Skipper's been yelling for you, sir.
Dick asks in surprise, "Skipper, John Paul Jones?" And he heads for the cabin. First picture, bottom row, Dick faces a handsome young man who's seated at a desk. This is Captain John Paul Jones, one of the most famous sea captains in American history. Jones says, "I want you to take the next watch on the masthead, Dick. Keep your eyes peeled for British ships. We're nearing that coast." "Aye, aye, sir." Last picture, Dick is climbing up the masthead to take his place at the watch, the very top of the forward mast, a pole in the ship's deck that holds up the sails. As he climbs higher and higher, he says, "It's like climbing a wobbly ladder up the sky. Gee whiz, I better not tell anybody I never did this before."
Ooh, that's dangerous for such a small boy to climb way up to the top of the mast of a ship in the wind when it's wiggling in the waves like that.
Oh, you bet your life it is. You have to hang on tight.
I don't think I'd like to do that.
Oh, it's lots of fun once you get up there.
Well, I'd rather stay on the ground and use a spyglass.
Yes, you're much safer that way.
Just think. Dick is with Captain John Paul Jones. He was really a very brave sailor, wasn't he?
I should say so. And I think we're going to see some exciting adventures with John Paul Jones.
Oh, goody. Oh, now, look, right underneath Dick's adventures, here's Rusty Riley. And this is getting very mysterious.
Yes, a man named Smith has learned that Rusty bought the painting his landlady had sold. And at the airport, he discovered Tex is the man he's after. To keep his eye on Tex, he's asked Tex if he could ride to Kentucky with him in the truck.
Well, I hope Tex doesn't let him ride along with him because you never can tell what'll happen. I don't trust this man.
Well, let's find out now. So here we go with Rusty Riley. Gallop and run till the road is dusty. Give us music for his horse and Rusty. Tex says to the young man,
Well, I'd sure like to give you a ride, partner, but with a valuable horse aboard, I just don't know.
Smith replies, Sure, I understand, and I don't blame you, but I assure you I'm not a hoodlum. I'm an artist.
Well, you sure don't look like the kind of hombre that would be boning a ride.
Well, the fact is I'm temporarily out of funds, and, I have to get to Lexington.
Well, okay, mister, we'll take you along. You can call me Tex. This is Rusty. What's your moniker?
Oh, hello, Rusty. Just call me Smitty.
I'm glad to know you, Smitty.
Last picture of the road, Tex says,
Hey, them fancy duds ain't exactly the best thing for riding a truck. I got an extra jacket in the back. Rusty will get it for you and hang your coat in the locker. What do you say?
Smith takes off his coat, saying, Thanks, very good idea. Very kind of you. First picture, bottom row, they're on their way, and Rusty is saying, Hey, did you say you're an artist, sir? Do you paint pictures? For the magazines, maybe? Smith says hesitantly, Well, not exactly. I'm really a draftsman. Mechanical, you know. Hours later, they're out in the country, well along their way to Kentucky. Tex slows down, saying,
Well, this is about as far as we can go for today. Get Big Blaze out so we can stretch his legs, Rusty, while I fix us some chow.
As Tex lets down the ramp on the back of the truck, Rusty hops in and pats Big Blaze, saying,
Easy there, big boy. You're going out for a while. Hey, what's that envelope on the floor? That must have dropped out of Smithy's coat when I hung it up.
He reaches down and he picks up the envelope. Last picture exclaims,
Golly, this is an airplane ticket to Lexington. Gee willikins, why should he beg a ride with us when he could have flown?
Oh, goody. Now we'll soon find out more about the mystery about what that painting's about.
Yes, well, Mr. Smith is going to be in an embarrassing spot when Tex asks him why he asked for a ride in the truck when he had that ticket in his pocket.
Yes. I can hardly wait.
Well, I'm afraid you'll have to wait, because that's all the time I have. But before I go, here's that nice fellow with some more interesting information. Well, honey, and all you boys and girls, I've got to go now.
All right, Mr. Comic Weekly Man, but I'll be waiting for you next week.
Okay, that's a date, and a date with all you boys and girls. Be sure to meet me with our little friend, Miss Honey, next week when I read Puck the Comic Weekly. For I'm the Comic Weekly Man, the jolly Comic Weekly Man. I'll be back to read the funnies to you happy boys and honeys. Don't forget, boys and girls, see you all next week. Your friend, the Comic Weekly Man, the jolly Comic Weekly Man.
Now from the newspaper funnies on radio in 1951 to a short-lived radio sitcom based on the 1948 movie with Cary Grant, Mr. Blandings Builds His Dream House.
Presenting Cary Grant and Betsy Drake as Mr. and Mrs. Blandings in a new series based on Eric Hodgins' best-selling novels, Mr. Blandings Builds His Dream House and Blandings Way. Did you know that TWA Skyliners in 1950 flew more than 61 million miles, or the equivalent of 2,440 trips around the world?
You love to fly high up in the sky. You ride the airwaves, starry stairways, smoother and swifter, flying so long. And the best way to fly, TWA.
Mr. and Mrs. Blanding, starring Cary Grant and Betsy Drake, with Gail Gordon as Bill Cole. For every man, there is one name out of the past that will always strike a responsive chord. For some, it's Dorothy. For others, it's Lois. For still others, it could be even Matilda. But for Jim Blandings, it's... Well, let's listen as Jim and his wife Muriel are just finishing breakfast. The telephone rings, Jim answers, and the voice of his friend Bill Cole says,
Jim, guess who's in town?
How should I know? Who?
Gloria Pickett. Well, Jim, say something.
I can't. I'm still vibrating.
Imagine, after all these years, Gloria Pickett.
Bill, don't say that name again. I'm not strong enough.
Jim, what's that noise?
Noise? You heard it too?
That noise is the toaster, dear. The spring is broken.
Oh, is that what it is?
You think it was?
I hate to tell you.
Listen, what's going on there? Are you talking to me or not?
Oh, sure, Bill. Go ahead.
Well, Gloria is opening here in a Broadway show. She bills herself as Lily Lamar. Have you seen her picture in the paper this morning?
No. I'll look for it.
It's on page 14, next to Believe It or Not. How would you like to see the real thing? Lily phoned this morning and wants to see you. Okay if I bring her out?
Great Scott, no. Don't bring her here.
Don't bring who here, Jim?
Bill has a kitten he wants to bring out, but we don't want her.
Why? Why, she might be a nice pet for the children.
Not this kitten.
Say, I've got it, Jim. Why don't Lily and I meet you for lunch? You're coming into town, aren't you?
Yeah, but I promised Mr. Guider I'd help him out on the Red Cross drive.
Oh, then you've got to talk to Lily. She could probably donate a lot of clothes. She hardly uses any.
Muriel and I are coming into town. We are taking a couple to lunch.
Oh, anyone I know?
No, I don't even know them myself. Some couple named Davis. They're giving the Red Cross a check, and Muriel and I are supposed to charm the decimal point over a few places.
Well, I guess I'll have to lunch with Lily alone. Good luck with your promoting.
Good luck with yours. Goodbye, Bill.
And they say that women gab on the phone. What were you and Bill talking about so long?
Nothing important. Just a lady we once knew at school is visiting in town.
One of your teachers?
Yes. Dear, did you see the morning paper?
It's right here on the table.
Thank you. Now, let me see. Page 14. Muriel, that toaster has got to be fixed. Jim mentioned a luncheon appointment with a Mr. and Mrs. Davis. This happy couple live their perpetual honeymoon in an apartment in Midtown, New York. At the moment, we find them at breakfast in their usual gay, affectionate mood. Meet, if you will, Popsy and Bunny.
Popsy. Popsy. Popsy.
Look, Bunny, if I told you once, I told you 1,000 times. Don't talk to me till noon.
Don't talk to me till noon. Don't talk to me till noon. You didn't used to feel that way.
So?
Funny what a couple of years of marriage will do.
What a couple of years of marriage has done to you ain't funny. Can you have it quiet?
All right. I'm quiet like a mouse. Squeak.
Now, Bunny.
It just slipped out. What are you doing with that newspaper?
I'm reading.
Your lips ain't moving. Let me see what you're staring at. I might have known. The curvaceous Lily Lamar.
Well, it just happens that I happen to be glancing at a picture.
Stop glancing. Your eyeballs are moving back and forth over that picture like it was printed in Braille.
she is loaded with glamour.
Glamour? Believe me, what she's got, I've got.
Yeah, but she's got it where it belongs. What time is it?
11 o'clock.
Oh, yeah? Well, then we better get moving if we're going to be in time for that lunch date. Go take the hardware store out of your hair.
Who are we eating with?
The Blandings. You remember them? We looked at their house one time.
How come we're having lunch with them?
I don't know. What's talk to me about the money I'm going to give to the Red Cross.
You're giving?
Yeah.
What's the Red Cross got on you that you gotta buy them love?
I am not buying them off. I am making a philanthropic contribution.
A philanthropic contribution? What's that mean?
Means it's deductible. Look, will you quit asking me those questions and go get dressed?
Okay. And what would your highness like me to wear?
Something that covers you completely.
Jim, I'm afraid we're late, and it's my fault for taking so long.
How old are you, Trifle, dear? It's worth it. You look adorable.
Why, darling, how nice of you to say so. Oh, do you realize you've been complimenting me ever since this morning when Bill called?
I have?
Yes. It almost seems as though you're trying to prove something.
Stop making good guesses.
Mr. Blandingland and Madame.
Oh, hello, Albert.
Good afternoon, Albert.
Madame, you look exquisite today, if you will permit me saying so.
That's what I like about this restaurant. I don't know about the food, but Albert serves such wonderful adjectives.
Albert, we're expecting to meet someone here. A Mr. and Mrs. Davis. Have they arrived?
Mon Dieu, have they arrived? Oh, but I forget myself. They are friends of yours?
No. As a matter of fact, we don't even know them. What are they like?
May I speak my mind freely?
Of course.
Mon Dieu. Mais cette femme, elle est la plus épouvantable dans tout le monde. Mais sacré bleu.
What's that mean, Jim?
Cherchez la stinker.
Man, it tells the waiter to bring scotch and water for him and for his wife.
Well, that seems a natural thing to do.
But, madame, you do not understand. He takes the scotch and he gives the water to his wife.
Where are they, Albert?
Right over there, in the alcove.
Where? Oh, I see them. Jim, look.
Where?
There, the purple shirt next to the orange plaid dress.
They can't be the ones we're meeting.
Oh, they are, though. I knew that name, Herman Davis. They're the ones who came to look at our house that time. Do you remember? You introduced me, and the first thing she said was, "Hiya, honey. You really like your hair that way?"
Perhaps you would like another table, or even to leave. I would not blame you, monsieur.
No, Albert, I'm afraid we've got to see them. It's our duty. They're going to make a big donation to the Red Cross, we hope.
If they offer to give blood, throw it away.
Albert, come on, take us to the table.
Right this way, Monsieur.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Hey, hello, Blandings. I'm glad you got here. Oh, hello, Mr. Davis. Mrs. Davis? Muriel, you remember Mr. and Mrs. Davis, don't you?
Of course. How are you?
It's nice to see you, ma'am.
The same hairdo. Funny about your hairdo. It don't. You know, honey, you need a little flash. Why don't you dye it?
Jim violently abhors dyed hair.
Humphrey's crazy about it, too. Especially blonde. How do you like the color of my hair?
Very nice. All of them.
Well, I think we'd better order. Albert?
Oui, monsieur.
We'd like to order now. Mrs. Davis, have you decided yet?
I can't make up my mind. Gee, I'm so hungry I could eat a horse.
It sounds like if she already did.
Well, that was a very nice lunch, wasn't it?
I thought so.
I'm sorry. I think it's a clip joint.
Why, Mr. Davis?
Well, look at the crummy little cup of coffee they give me. There ain't enough in it for 2 swallows.
But you ordered a demi-tasse.
Well, of course. I'm nuts about cheese and crackers.
Davis, I I bow to your unanswerable argument. Now, if you ladies don't mind our talking a little business for the Red Cross.
Oh, hey, look, I didn't think that we'd talk about that here.
No?
No, you see, we need to go someplace where we can really concentrate, you know? Check out a lot of problems.
Yeah, like how you're going to ditch us girls.
Who said anything about ditching you? Just thought that you girls might like to go shopping.
Listen, Herman Davis, if you think you're going to... Did you say shopping? Hey, hon, how about that?
Oh, I can hardly wait, although I'd like a chance to. You go ahead, Jim, and we'll meet you at the office at 5.
Popsy, you sure this is business?
Now, Bonnie, how could you ask such a question? What else could it be?
Well, if it's on 2 legs, it could be a woman. And if it's on 4 legs, it could be 2 women.
Well, come on, Mr. Blandings. We'll pay the check on the way out.
All right. We'll meet you at 5.
Goodbye, dear.
Bye, darling. Well, your wife is a bit suspicious, isn't she?
Yeah. How do you like the nerve of that? That is the most ridiculous thing that I ever heard of.
I sympathize. Now, shall we go to my office to discuss our business?
Business? Don't tell me that you fell for that corny line. Oh, get wise, Blandings.
Wise?
Well, sure. Hey, look, I got us 2 front-row tickets to Dolls on Parade.
Mr. Davis, are you suggesting that we have abandoned our spouses to revel in dubious pleasures?
Heavens, no. We just ditched them to live a little. Oh, boy, they got a doll on this show that is called Lily Lamar. And
Lily Lamar?
Yeah.
Mr. Davis, I don't think I should go. I don't think I'd enjoy that show.
Now, look, Blandings, your voice has changed. You'll enjoy the show.
But the Red Cross...
Now, wait, please. Charity begins at home. And after we've lived a little, then I will be happy to give you a check for my contribution. Now, you coming?
Well, in that case...
All right. Okay. Start shaking, Lily. We are on the way.
Say, what's the United States mean to you? What does it mean to people in foreign lands? How would you tell those people about our country?
Well, friends, I'm sure you'll agree that one of the best ways to get people from other countries acquainted with this vast, wonderful land of ours is to let them see it firsthand. Let them see it in action. And TWA is now doing just that. Recently, invitations were sent to a group of overseas newspapermen in England, France, in fact, all the important European countries, as well as those of the Near East and India. Invitations to see free enterprise actually at work here in the United States, in the fields and in the factories, in the small towns and in the big cities. And at this very moment, these distinguished journalists are flying from Paris to New York on a trip that will show them the real United States, show them our way of doing things, the tremendous benefits of a commerce where freedom of expression, freedom of enterprise is the rule. A rule that has made this nation the proud standard-bearer of democracy among all the nations of the earth. And you know, even before they set foot on U.S. soil, they'll have a practical example of democracy at work. And that's in this TWA flight. A flight that in itself stands for freedom of trade, free competition, a business operating under just government regulations for the common good of the people. A flight that not only promotes the exchange of ideas between countries, but promotes the exchange of trade as well. And thus, TWA, Trans World Airlines, is proud to support our State Department's stirring campaign of truth. Through this flight, the truth about our land and our priceless freedom of enterprise will be brought to millions of people throughout the world. Now the second act of Mr. and Mrs. Blanding, starring Cary Grant and Betsy Drake. When Jim Blanding's client, Popsy Davis, told his wife Bunny and Jim's wife Muriel that they were going to have a business meeting, it turned out to be what might charitably be called a little white lie. As a matter of fact, the white on this one isn't quite dry yet. For here they are with front row tickets still clutched in their hot little hands at the intermission of the Broadway show Dolls on Parade. A show which happens to feature one Lily Lamar, an old school friend of Jim's. Now, what do you say? Let's go out and stretch our legs.
Yeah, hey, I can hardly stand up. These theater seats are murder.
How can you tell? Huh? You only sat on the front edge of yours.
Hey, tell me, what do you think them gals jumping around on their toes there, those ballerinas?
Ballerinas.
Ballerinas, schmallerinas. Did you get the way they jump around? Hey, you'd have to trip one of them to catch up with her.
Of course, you could keep a rope and lasso her.
Yeah, like the Tennessee Williams guy.
Or hop along Shakespeare.
Boy, the doll that I would like to latch on to is that Lily Lamar. Oh, yeah. I could be very happy with a dish like that.
Mr. Davis, aren't you forgetting something?
Like what?
Your wife, Bunny.
Please, I'm not well.
Saw pictures of all the cuties who were in the program, mister.
Hey, Buster, we ain't tourists.
You ain't here to listen to music. Hey, if it ain't Popsy the Pigeon.
Well, if it ain't my old pal, Freddie the Fink.
Hey, who's the square?
Landing's the bumpkin.
Hey, tell me, Freddie, what are you doing peddling programs? I heard that you was running a book on Detroit. I thought you was in with the big boys.
I was, but I didn't get called up by the chief off a committee, and it ruined my standing. Hey, how do you like the show? What do you think of Lily?
Oh, that Lily, hey, what a dish. Ooh, would I like to meet her.
So why don't you? Come backstage with me, and I'll give you a knockdown.
Now, wait, look, don't tease an old pal.
Who's teasing? Come on back right now. You can see the rest of the show from backstage.
Yeah, holy smoke. Hey, Blandings. Oh, what a break, huh?
I don't think we'd better go.
What's the matter? You nuts or something?
No, but I'm catching a cold, and you know how drafty those backstages are.
Hey, look, Blandings, with Lily Lamar around, you ain't gonna catch no cold. Come on, let's go backstage.
Yes, men don't know what they're missing.
Do you think I should buy this dress?
Isn't it a bit low around the neckline?
Oh, I don't know. I like them to expose a little.
Well, that one doesn't expose a little. It gives away the whole plot.
Say, that dress that you're trying on is murder. The sales girl had some nerve even showing it to you, I'll say.
This is the dress that I wore in here today.
Oh, sorry, hon. If I'd known that rag was yours, I never would have said it was a rag.
That's very sweet of you.
But wherever did you get it?
This is a Christian Dior.
A what?
A Christian Dior.
Oh, bought it at a church bazaar. Say, honey, not that I'm the kind that's interested in such things, but there is a very handsome gentleman giving us the once-over.
Where?
Over there.
Why, that's Bill Cole. Bill, what are you doing here?
Just admiring you from afar, Muriel. You look delightful in that dress.
She bought it at a church bazaar.
I beg your pardon?
Oh, I'm sorry. Mrs. Davis, I'd like you to meet Bill Cole.
How do you do? I'm very pleased to meet you.
My phone number is circle 28530.
Mrs. Davis is the wife of a business client of Jim's.
Oh, thanks for answering a question I couldn't ask.
Well, Bill, what are you doing here?
Oh, just picking up a package for an old friend.
Oh, the one from out of town. How sweet and thoughtful.
Mr. Cole?
Oh, over here, miss.
Here's your change, sir. And here's your package. I have the negligee gift wrapped as you wish.
Thank you.
And thank you for your continued patronage.
Gee, Mrs. Blandings, you have such interesting friends.
Bill, do you always buy negligees for your old school teachers?
Well, all right. I'll confess. I'm just picking this up as a favor for Lily Lamar.
Who?
Actually, Gloria Pickett. She's an old friend of mine, and...
Jim's too, perhaps?
Perhaps.
And she's not the school teacher Jim mentioned.
Well, if Jim said that she... Well, I'm not sure that that's... Then, on the other hand, he might have...
Muriel, how are the children?
You know, I'd like to see this, Lily.
As a matter of fact, I'd be interested in seeing her myself.
Well, I'm going to deliver this package to her dressing room now. Why don't you ride over with me?
Have we got time?
Oh, we got an hour till we meet the boys.
Well, let's be on our way.
Gee, wait till Popsy finds out I met Lily Lamar.
And wait till Jim finds out I met her.
Yes, it will probably come as quite a shock to both of them.
Well, here's our dressing room. Hey, Lily. Lily, got a couple of stage door Johnnies to see you.
I am not a stage door Johnny.
Just a second. I'm changing.
Uh-oh.
I'm ready.
Guess she didn't have much to change.
Come in.
Here they are, Lil. This is Popsy Davis, an old buddy of mine.
Oh, well. How do you do?
Never so good as right now.
It's so hot in here.
And the square in the corner here is Blandings.
Oh, well, how nice. What was that name again?
Dinwiddie. Horace Dinwiddie.
Jim Blandings.
Hello, Gloria. Hey, wait a minute. You didn't tell me that you were a friend of hers?
She's not exactly a friend.
Oh, Jimmy boy. Oh, it's so good to see you. Oh, honey, let me just hug you and hug you and hug you.
Ah.
Well, she's not exactly an enemy either.
Oh, Jim, baby, how do I look to you?
Nice, Lily. You look nice.
Oh, thank you, Jim.
He says nice. She likes it. All these years I've been doing it wrong. I'm going back to hopscotch and work my way up again.
Well, it's been nice seeing you, Lily, but I'm afraid I must run along.
Oh, but Jimmy boy, you can't just run away now. I want to hear all about you.
Something like that.
Oh, well, we shouldn't criticize. Actually, I guess it just shows she loves him.
What do you mean that?
Well, of course. Muriel, where are you going?
For a stepladder and a jar of cold cream.
Cary Grant and Betsy Drake will be back with us in just a moment. Friends, did you know that TWA is the only airline that goes all the way across the U.S. and overseas to Europe, the Middle East, and India? Yes, you can board a TWA plane in 60 cities in the United States and fly to London, Paris, Rome, and other world centers abroad. And say, just ask anyone who travels a lot and you'll find out that this one airline service is mighty important. It means you buy only one ticket. You enjoy the same courteous service all the way, and you don't have to worry about complicated connections. So fly the finest. Fly TWA, Trans World Airlines. Next time you plan a trip for business or pleasure, see your friendly travel agent or call your nearest TWA office.
You love to fly high up in the sky. You ride the airwaves, starry stairways.
Smoother and swifter, flying so high.
And the best way to fly, TWA.
Here again are Cary Grant and Betsy Drake.
Now, I'll answer it, dear. Hello?
Hello, Jim. This is Bill. May I speak with Muriel, please?
Miss Muriel? All right. Yeah, it's for you, dear.
Hello?
Hello, Muriel. Yes, who just flew into town on the TWA Constellation.
Who?
Flew all the way to New York from San Francisco in just 10 hours and 5 minutes. Isn't the speed of those TWA Constellations amazing?
Bill, who just flew into town?
And TWA has the world's largest fleet of constellations.
Bill, will you please stop teasing me and tell me who came to town?
All right. It's an old flame of yours.
Bill, don't tell me it's...
That's right. Horace Dinwiddie.
What is it?
Nothing. And please fix that toaster.
Muriel, that toaster has been fixed.
Stay
Stay tuned for Tallulah Bankhead's wonderful Big Show on NBC.
I'm Dennis Daly. Thanks for going along on our journey through the final 25 years of radio. Radio's golden years. Join me again next time.